Hello, this is Pretty Guardian, and today we are talking about the game Dragalia Lost. Dragalia Lost is a action RPG, JRPG, mobile gacha game that came out towards the end of 2018. It was released by Nintendo and Cygames. If you've played a lot of Cygames games like Princess Connect and Grand Blue Fantasy, then the art style of this game is probably going to be very familiar to you. You can tell that they put a lot of really good work in it, and it's just a solid, fun game. This isn't something that I plan on playing long term, but after all of the mobile games that I played, if I knew that somebody liked anime, they liked JRPG, they liked mobile games, and they were asking me like, hey, what's something you think that I should play? This would be a very easy one for me to pick out, just because of how well it's done and how laid back the monetization is in it compared to a lot of other games that we've played so far. Raid Shadow Legends, Dragon Raja. I am so sorry, I had a free-to-play caught in my throat. But without further ado, let's go ahead and just talk about the criteria that we use here. So to start out with music, I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. I feel like the soundtrack in here definitely has a few bops to it. Like if you look at even our little characters in the game, they're just like bobbing their heads along to the music. 4, 3, 2, 1. It's good. I don't know how like in-depth the soundtrack really gets in general. Like a lot of the songs are a little bit generic, but definitely a lot of like upbeat bops in there, and I am here for it. Second, let's talk about the gameplay. I'm also giving this one a 4 out of 5. It has kind of interesting battles. Rather than like the typical turn-based stuff that we've seen so far, this one is a little bit more action-oriented, where you can let it auto battle, but a lot of times, especially with bosses, they have like specific attacks that you want to block, and there's certain skills that you want to use. So it's definitely a lot more engaging than some of the games that we've seen so far. And then that brings us to story. So for story, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. And I actually have a special guest here, Literal Maverick. He is literally the Maverickist, and I'm going to have him explain the story because I just love the way that he does it.
The story here stars your main character, Yuden, who's the 7th scion to a royal family. After a particular set of events unfold, he can transform into a dragon, and he is also thrust out of the comfort of his capital and placed into a war with a great evil. The plot focuses on Yuden making relationships with others in order to build up his army and influence so he can take back what is his and save the world. The story starts out with some really interesting events and offers up some unique ideas, such as the fact that our hero can make pacts with dragons, but after a while it seems like a fairly run-of-the-mill story, and the nature of this being a long-running game doesn't really help with the pacing of major events. Regardless, however, this story shines in its large and diverse cast and awesome-ass dragons. The cast of those who are essential to the main narrative are varied and intriguing in and of themselves, with the side characters and dragons who can be acquired through other means, such as a summoning pool or events, are where a lot of the intrigue lies. Each character and dragon in this game has a side narrative that you can read, and they each offer up a unique character arc for the particular character, or a history behind the particular dragon. The writing here isn't bad either, and these stories allow for each to get to become their own three-dimensional character.
Big thank you to Literal Maverick for letting me use that portion. He actually has his own game review of Dragalia Lost. I definitely recommend that you check it out, and I'm including it in the description box for this video. I pretty much agree with like what he said about it. He summarized the plot really well. My like -1 of a point comes down to 2 things. First off is the pacing. Because this is one of those like long form games where they planned on people playing it really for years, as long as the game is like financially viable and people are enjoying it, which it seems to be. So the pacing really isn't that good. But the other thing is that it does this like thing that a lot of anime does, especially. They don't really like foreshadow stuff. They just flat out tell you like the secrets or whatever you're watching as. So as an example, there's a bit fairly early on. Skip ahead a minute if this is like spoilers for you, but I really don't care. It happens within like the first 2 chapters. But there's this main character named Zethia, and there's like this evil presence that's like coming to fight you guys or whatever. And you can kind of tell if you're like really paying attention that it's like her with a mask and a different outfit or whatever. But at the end of like one of those little story events, they just immediately tell you like, oh yeah, this is her from the future, an alternate timeline or something. I don't know. I feel like that's something where they could have disguised it a little bit better and then actually waited to tell us. Because if they had waited until, you know, like 5 or 6 chapters in, it kind of would have been an, oh shit, that's her sort of moment. But instead they just tell you up front. And this is something that I see a lot in anime. This game is no exception. There are like little twists and turns where rather than letting them be twists and turns, they just tell you like, this is what's happening, this is what you're looking at. And I don't know if that's like poor writing or what it is, but the plot isn't exactly riveting. I enjoy it. I think it's good, like definitely something worth playing through, but it's not exactly riveting to begin with. So when they kind of take out those little nuggets that could have been something good, it stands out to me. Next up, we're going to talk about the art style, which I'm giving a 4 out of 5. I think that it's really good. Cygames always has like really beautiful anime art to it. The UI is almost kind of reminiscent of comic books or graphic novels, just in kind of the way that it's stylized. And overall, I think it all really works together. Where I'll give this game credit over something like Princess Connect is the art style actually seems more cohesive. A lot of the characters seemed like they're actually designed for this game and meant for this game and not just pulled out of a stock database. For me, I don't really love the chibi style. I feel like a lot of details and richness from the anime style are kind of lost when they're simplified like that. And so I just don't love it, which is kind of where that subtraction of a point comes from. Some people might totally disagree and think that it's like the best thing ever. And then finally, that brings us to the cash shop, which I'm also giving a 4 out of 5. To their credit, there seems to be a lot of like pretty good deals, low cost monthly packs. They give you a lot of premium currency in this game. So to some extent, you don't even really have to utilize the shop all that much as far as like spending your own money goes. And I'll say for me playing through it, I was never pushed into the cash shop. And honestly, I didn't even know where the cash shop was. Like other than the summoning screen, which you get lots of currency for summoning and you get like free pulls and stuff all the time. It's probably one of the least intrusive cash shops that I've seen in any of the games that we've played so far. So I'm giving them a 4 out of 5 for that. I do want to share a couple reviews with you today. And the reason I'm choosing 2 of them is because my review is largely a good one, so I wanted to include a negative review. But honestly, there's not a lot of negative reviews out there. Like most people seem to be really enjoying the game, and the game definitely has a thriving community surrounding it. So I'm just going to start with this one from the Google Play Store. It is by a Taco. They gave it a 1 star. I may disagree with the current state of gameplay, but what is truly disagreeable is the developers' communication. They ignore consistent complaints and selectively respond to the player base, avoiding difficult topics. As a result, they appear distant, and it's difficult to understand the developers' vision for the game and its future. I can forgive the gameplay feeling worse and worse to an extent, but until they begin communicating more honestly and transparently, I cannot improve my score. I thought that was an interesting one because what I've heard from a lot of people who actively play this game is that the developers do listen. And there's been a lot of quality of life changes and different changes that have happened from that. So I think it's kind of interesting how 2 people can play the same game and then just have completely different perspectives on it. The other review that I wanted to share is right on the front page from a Mr. Nope Double Nope. And he said, while your value in the cash shop is significantly worse than other gacha games, you can make a lot more progress without spending money compared to those same games. It's a good grind to kill some time on a regular basis. It's still got a very strong community support and regularly updated content. And as long as you like action-based gacha games, you'll have endless hours of fun with this. One of the things that I think is important to call out is the updates. There are a lot of games on the market where if you look at them, some of them haven't been updated in years. So when you're like looking for a new game to play, the one that hasn't been updated in years is probably not going to be as good of a fit as the one that's getting updates weekly, every other week, that sort of thing. For a lot of these games, active development is the lifeblood of the game. And when I looked in the shop, the last update for this one actually happened just 3 days before me filming this video, and it included a lot of bug fixes. So it's nice to know that they're actually like supporting and taking care of the game still. Let's go ahead and run through our scores one last time here. For music, we got a 4 out of 5, gameplay 4 out of 5, story 4 out of 5, art style 4 out of 5, and cash shop 4 out of 5. That needs to be like some sort of award here because they just got a clean sweep of 4 out of 5s. But that brings us to a total of 80%. So good job, Dragalia Lost. Definitely a fun game that I would recommend. Next week, we're going to be talking about the game Raid Shadow Legends, which I was really surprised that I enjoyed as much as I did. So I'm excited to talk to you about it. Thank you so much for watching along, and I will see you next week.